Good evening and welcome to Frontline Access with Maccabi Canada. Russ is somewhere on the 401 tonight, but he'll be joining us soon. But tonight's guest is none other than Joe Tilley. Joe was a high school dropout with an alcohol problem, and at that time, his future seemed pretty bleak. He's got an inspirational story to share on how he went through recovery, became a boxing champion, a university graduate, and then eventually the #1 sports anchor in the whole country. So without further ado, let's bring in Joe. Quite the resume, Joe.
Well, you know what? I like whoever wrote your stuff to tell you I was the #1 sports anchor in Canada. They're hired. That's great. I know there might be a few people who would argue that, but that's okay. Let them go ahead. No, but yeah, it was it's quite a journey I've been on, and it's in a good place today. Yeah.
So tell us a bit about the beginning of this journey, because of course we led off with high school dropout with an alcohol problem. That's a long road to recovery.
Well, sure. So I remember getting dropped off by the school bus across from across from high school, like on the I grew up in Edmonton, so we're talking about Ross Shepherd High School, and right across the street from Ross Shepherd High School was the Westmount Mall. So, all the guys are on the school bus, they get off the school bus, they head into school. I got off the school bus and I headed into the Westmount Mall, and I would hang around the mall all day and, bum cigarettes and money. And my thing was I wanted to get drunk and party. And that's what I did. So I dropped out of high school when I was 15 the first time, tried going back again, dropped out again. And then started working at various jobs in the warehouse district of Edmonton, and it was easy to get jobs back then. And we're talking about the 1970s. Lots of opportunities for employment, not great employment, but you could get a job. And I'd lose jobs because of my drinking, and then I'd get another job. And this went on for a number of years, and then I got to a point where I was really depressed, really messed up, and I knew I had to do something to change what I was doing. The course that I was on was taking me to a really lousy place. I was in a state of depression that was really deep and seemed almost inescapable. And I came to the conclusion I had to do something different with my life, or I was going to die basically, and kill myself, because I couldn't stand the nonsense that was going on in my head. I couldn't make my head was a really nasty place to be, and so dark place. So I decided that the one thing that I might be able to do well was box, and that was my deal. And I always believed that I would be a good boxer if I applied that myself to boxing, and so I went down to the Native Friendship Center. They had a boxing club there called the Native Boys Boxing Club. It had a really good reputation, and I started to train. And I looked at it like this is my only option. And this was like the last door on the last house on the last street. And if I didn't do something with this, then I was going to die, And so I got right into it, and I just quit drinking, transferred my addiction to training. So I would go down to the club in the afternoon, and I'd work out and hit the bag and do stuff like that, and then skip and shadow box and all that stuff. Then I'd come home, have dinner, then I'd go back and maybe do some roll work either early in the morning or at night, in the afternoon. Then go back at night and spar and get some training and coaching and hit the bag and pads and that was it. I was locked in, and as a result of my dedication to the sport, my coach Gordon Russell asked me if I wanted to have some fights, and I said, "Sure, let's do it." So I started having fights, and the next thing you know, I won the Alberta Novice Championship, and then I ended up going back to school. So this is all happening when I'm 19 years old. And then I ended up going back to school and getting the courses that I would need to go to have a post-secondary education. So what I did is I had grade 10 in Alberta. High school is 10, 11, 12. So I had grade 10. I did grade 10 math and English and grade 10 science, well, biology and physics, and grade 10. And I just started cramming because I had lots of time between training, going to school. Pretty much did nothing else. So I was able to get some help from the government. My parents fortunately would allow me to live there and rent free and all that stuff. They were happy to see me doing something with my life, so it was they were happy about that. And so I ended up going back to school, and as I was boxing, and I combined the courses. And by the time when I turned 20 years old, I was able to get into university with just the necessary courses. It would have taken me another year or so, or maybe more, I don't know, to get the credits I needed for high school. But I could enter university as a mature student if I was over 20 at the time, and so I was able to do that. And so my original goal was to be an actor. So I took drama in school, and boxing was an option. I thought maybe I could be a boxer, actor, combine the two. I didn't know how that was going to work out. But anyway, I continued to fight, and I ended up winning the Alberta Open Championship, and then got a chance to go and travel with the Alberta team when we went, all over the country. Went to the Nationals, and now we're talking 1978, and got a bronze medal at the Nationals, and got a chance to travel around. We traveled to parts of the U.S. to box. I went to Ireland, got a chance to go on a tour of Ireland, and I fought 4 times over there, and actually probably had one of my best fights ever over there. I knocked out the Irish champ in Belfast.
Wow.
That was awesome. And
I hope you drank to that.
well, I did. You know what? Here's the thing, right? So I told you about my alcohol problem. When I was training, I didn't drink. But when training was over in the summertime, I would get back with my friends, and we'd party again, and we'd get together. And I'd wine for a couple of weeks, and 2 or 3 weeks, and go crazy, and then get back into training again. My coach used to hate it because he didn't like what was, he kind of had an idea what I was like, and he knew that it was that was a problem for me. But anyway, I was able to manage it for a period of time. And then my last year of university, I made a career change. I decided that instead of maybe a career in acting, I might want to be a sportscaster, because at this time I met a girl, and we were getting serious, and we decided that we were going to get married, and I wanted to have a career that offered some stability, and I didn't know about acting and stability involved there. I started working for the campus radio station, the University of Alberta, and I liked it. I loved it. I was doing the morning sportscast. I got a chance to do some color commentary, play-by-play with the Golden Bears hockey team, and I just really enjoyed it. And so just before I graduated, I started sending tapes out, and then just after I graduated, I should also say I used to also work in the summertime and during breaks in school. I was in the laborers union, so I joined the laborers union, so that way I could make some decent money when I was going to school. And so I'm working as a laborer. I had my last fight shortly before that, just before I graduated, because I decided I didn't want to turn professional. It was not. I knew some pros, and I knew the work involved, and I knew that the risks involved, and I decided that I'm going to be a sportscaster. That's what I'm going to do. And I started sending tapes out. I ended up sending a tape to Lethbridge, CKRD in Red Deer, and I got a job. Just the month before I was supposed to get married, 2 months after I graduated, I got a job in Red Deer, CKRD, doing afternoon newscasts and sportscast on TV at 11:30. And the afternoon drive DJ was a guy named Ron McLean. You may have heard of him. So Ron McLean.
Yeah, I think I know the name.
Yeah. So Ron McLean was the afternoon DJ, and he did the weather on TV, which is funny. And Ron and I would come on and do the news. And when I did the news on radio, I was just basically, there's a term called ripping and reading. So the newswire would come in and would a news summary by the hour. I just ripped that news summary off the wire, read the news summary, and the whole time I spent typing in my sportscast for the evening. And so I worked hard at that, and the sportscast got to be pretty good. And I ended up applying for a job in Lethbridge after I was there after I was in Red Deer for about a year, and I got a job in Lethbridge as the sports director. So now I was 100% sports. I did, I went around and reported on the local Lethbridge sports teams. Back then, the hockey team was the Broncos. They had a baseball team that played in the Pioneer League rookie ball called the Lethbridge Dodgers. I covered the Lethbridge Pronghorns university teams, and Kodiak, Lethbridge College. So I covered all local teams. I got a chance to do my own weekly sports show. It was called Sports Beat, which is based on a similar show that Pat Marsden had in Toronto. And I even did a documentary on the Lethbridge judo team, which was extremely successful. For a small town, they had like 4 Olympic judokas. So I did a documentary on that. So I was doing a lot of work, getting a lot of opportunity, learning the craft. And I sent a tape to Pat Marsden. Pat Marsden was a sports director at CFTO Toronto, which is now CTV Toronto. And Pat, my objective was to get some direction, because I thought Pat must know every sports anchor, sports director in Canada. He might be able to give me some advice on, where I should sort of, focus on moving next and that type of thing. And then I got a call that Pat Marsden had called the office looking for me. So I called back and got a hold of Pat, and he said, listen, I saw your tape that you sent me. And he said, a very funny thing happened. The very next day after I saw your tape, Fergie Oliver, who had been there for 22 years, came into my office and told me that he was leaving. And because Fergie was doing Blue Jays baseball, he had his own TV show, and he was just too busy to be doing the 11:30 sports on CFTO. So he told Pat that he was, quitting. And so Pat said, I just seen your tape, and I thought timing was good. So he said, how'd you like to move to Toronto? I said, well, it sounds pretty good. So I flew into Toronto for an interview, met the folks in Toronto and the bosses, and Pat was amazing. He picked me up at the airport. We went back to my hotel. And back then, I was, like I mentioned, I was drinking was my part of my thing. I worked hard at my job. I want to be a good sportscaster. I worked really hard, but I like to party too. So, and fortunately, Pat did too. So we had some really good conversations, and then he picked me up the next day, and he took me around to Exhibition Stadium, the old place where the Argos and the Blue Jays used to play. He took me to Maple Leaf Gardens and took me to Kensington Market, and it was really awesome. And then we went to meet the bosses, and Pat he put in a really good word for me, and so I got hired in Toronto, and that was in 1984. My first job, I was weekend anchor, and that's Saturday and Sunday, both shows. And then I did reporting on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So I had Thursday and Friday off. And my very first day in July of 1984, the Summer Olympics were on from Los Angeles. The Blue Jays were playing, the Argos were playing, and I was left to just put the whole thing together myself.
Quiet day.
It was great. It was nuts. Because I had to go find tape, and they introduced me to this place called the Pit, where I had to, tell them isolate certain plays and put them on a 1-inch tape to 3/4-inch tape, then run it upstairs, have it cut by them. It was crazy running my
I think
butt
we
off
have
the
some
whole
people
day.
here that don't realize there's a time before YouTube. So
Yeah. Oh yeah,
digital
there was a time before YouTube in the digital world for sure. It was crazy.
tape life. My God.
Yeah,
Now you go on YouTube, or you get a little file sent to you, you send it to an editor, they spruce it up, and you're good. Or you could do it yourself on an easy piece of software. Like, it's crazy.
It's a different world. It really is. And I would have editors cutting stuff for me. Then I'd be writing it all. I had to write everything myself. Still do, but that's different. But that's what I wanted to do. And I always wanted to write my own stuff. I didn't like the idea of reading stuff that somebody else had written anyway. I never liked that idea. Because first of all, if you write it, you know it, right? You lose your place. You know, you lost the script. I mean, the script is, there's a play that's inserted there, shouldn't be there. You can roll with the punches if you have written the script yourself. It's a lot harder when somebody else has written it. So,
well, Joe, I gotta say, like, as a former high school athlete in the GTA, I did watch CTV News a lot, or CFTO News, and you were a staple because whenever you were leading the newscasts, you'd always have a point where you'd bring in high school football in particular, and you'd showcase high school football like they do in the States, quite frankly. And that's one thing why I always remember Joe Tilley when Smadge was telling me, hey, we got Joe Tilley on the show. I'm like, Joe Tilley was the one guy who always, and I know, like, I think it was Lance Brown was the other guy, but you were the one who always stuck in my head whenever I saw high school football highlights, whether it was Northern or whatever. And I do want to give you kudos for that. And even just your story through your career, it's so amazing how you invested yourself in the Toronto community. So being somebody who came from Lethbridge to Toronto, what was that experience like for you?
Well, that was crazy. I mean, it was, that wasn't a regular jump. I mean, I actually had an opportunity to go to Calgary, CFC in Calgary, shortly after I started in Lethbridge. But at the time, I got offered the weekend job at CFRN Calgary. And Russ Peak and Ken Newens did the 6 o'clock show. Russ Peak did the 11:30 show. And they had an opening for the weekend at CFRN Calgary. And so Ken Newens offered me the job, but I just started at Lethbridge. I was learning, the business, and there you go, and learning the business, and I really liked what I was doing, and I asked for some advice on that, and I was suggested that to me that, Russ Peak and Ken Newens are not going anywhere. You take that job in Calgary, and you're going to get locked into that weekend shift, and you're probably, it's going to be many years before you get, an opportunity. And so I decided to turn down the job. Ken Newens was quite upset with me, but he hung up on me, and then I started to wonder. But it was only a couple months later that Pat offered me the job, and as I said before, I was actually sending him a tape to get a critique and get some advice on what I need to do to get better. What would be like a good stepping stone for me next? And as fate would have it, Fergie Oliver quit the next day, and they had an opening there, and they liked what I was doing, and so that was a big jump. Going from CFC in Lethbridge and having in a community of like 70,000 people, where I might have 1,000 people watching me at night if I'm lucky, to a community of like Toronto, when you have over 1 million people watching every night, and on good nights, and it was crazy. So it was the #1 station in Canada. So it was a big jump, a big move, and I was lucky. Timing was good.
Joe, I can't help but think back to, the story of how you became who you were. And you'll compare it to, they have all these athletes that we see, and it's a common story. They have such natural talent, incredible talent, and they squander it, whether it's through, the people they hang out with, or, they just, get too, into themselves. They just end up ruining their careers. What is it? Athletes, you've been around them for years. What goes through your mind when you see athletes do that with their potentially successful careers?
Well, so there's a little bit more to my story. I continued on to drink more and more and more, and it got to a point where I was feeling a depression again, and my life was in full unraveling, and my wife had enough, and I had to leave the house, and by that time I had 3 kids, and went to live with a buddy of mine in his 1-bedroom basement apartment, sleeping on his love seat. It was just it was bad. Like I was in a bad place. And I had to do something about my drinking, and or else I was going to die. And so once again, I reached out for help. This time, I asked other help for help outside of myself, and I wasn't able to suck it up. And you know, this time around, there's no quitting for me. I tried, couldn't do it. I mean, so I, being an alcoholic, I had to do something to change, and my wife had a lot of help in that and helping me to see that I had a problem, and there were other people too, and so I ended up phoning and ending up going to treatment and finding recovery. And I think what happens is it's a disease, right? Alcoholism is a disease, and it's not like I have an option to just pull up my bootstraps and go on. I can't. I need outside help, and I need to change. And I need to change everything about my life. And when I do that, and I precipitate that change, and then get involved with the recovery community, then I'm able to recover and have a really really good life as a result of that. But it's been almost 29 years since I had my last drink, so it's been a while, and I have no desire to ever go back there. And if I take care of myself one day at a time, I won't have to. So when I see when I see an athlete or another a friend or anybody who's having a hard time, in the same place I was at, and their life's unraveling, and I when I see those people, I have a lot of compassion and understanding, and I realize that, it's not them. It's nothing they can do. It's because they have this disease that wants to better insane and won't stop until it gets there. And, so, I realize that they're in the same boat as me. There is help. There's a way to get help. And there's a few things you have to do. And if you do those things and you ask for help and you reach out, you can get well. And if you do that, you can have a great life too. But when you're stuck in it, it's really hard to get out of it. You can't think your way into recovery if you're an alcoholic or addict, because it's like this. It's so I have a diseased brain. Imagine I've got a sick brain, right? And I'm trying to figure out on my own how to fix this sick brain with the same sick brain that created the sickness. It's never going to happen. Every time I start trying to do it on my own, I go back to my old way of thinking. My old way of thinking takes me to a place where I have low self-esteem, think poorly of myself, and fall into this big rut, and I can't get out of this bottomless pit, seemingly bottomless pit. I can't do it on my own. And, so I need help, and I got to reach out and I got to ask for help. And if I reach out and ask for help, I got a shot. Right. So that's what everybody who's in that position, whether it be an athlete or whatever, has to come to that same realization that you have to get to that place where you realize that I can't do it on my own. I need help. And if I keep trying to do it on my own, I'm just going to sink lower and lower and lower. And sometimes we have people around us that enable us to continue on, and that what that does is that keeps lowering the bottom and lowering the bottom and lowering the bottom. I was fortunate in that I mean, at the end, there wasn't, the job was hanging by a thread, but I still had the job. A lot of people have to lose more than that, right? A little people have to lose just about everything, right? But there's, I'm just lucky that I didn't have to, and I'm lucky that I was able to get family back, and but it's a deadly disease. I lost a son to addiction.
Wow.
Yeah, and he died of an accidental overdose, fentanyl, in 2014.
Wow.
Because
So sorry.
yeah, so it's like it is a fatal disease, and if you don't do something about it, that's where you're headed, especially the way things are now. I mean, God, there's so much stuff out there that you know what you're taking. You don't just have no idea what you're taking. And for me, alcohol was my thing, and I didn't have to worry about having it spiked with fentanyl or whatever, or carfentanil or whatever there is today. But still, I mean, there was always the danger of me getting into a car and killing myself or somebody else. There was always the danger of me drinking and having alcohol poisoning, or passing out and choking on my vomit or whatever. I mean, those are always possibilities when you're in that position. And yeah, so it's pretty. It is a deadly disease, but at the same time, it's also it's an incredible turnaround when you get to have a recovery. So.
And honestly, Joe, I think like your story is so inspirational, and like I can't imagine the things your family has gone through over those past years, but just knowing you're sharing your story makes a difference in so many people's lives. Like, I had a friend who was also very deep into the bottle, so it's good to know. And for me, I feel inspired just to hear your story and the fact that you have come so far. And I think more people who hear this story now can be able to have the tools to put themselves in the right path. And I think we, like, at Maccabi, we have a lot of young athletes who are going into high stress times, and they're going into those competitions and those things of amateur sport and the pressures of amateur sport. And knowing how you've covered amateur sport, what kind of pressures do you think these young athletes have right now, that they're going through?
Well, when it comes to pressure, I mean, it's what the bottom line is some of us handle pressure better than others. Some of us thrive under pressure. Some of us fold under pressure. And the athletes that thrive under pressure are generally going to do a lot better. But again, if you have a problem, I mean, there's other mental illnesses other than addiction and alcoholism, and sometimes depression can affect different athletes as well if they get stuck in that that spiral, that you get stuck in that place where you just think that there's no way out of this. There's no way out of this funk that you're in. But there is, when you reach out and ask for help. There's help there. No matter what you're going through, no matter what you're experiencing, no matter how that pressure's getting to you, there's always there are other people who are going through exactly the same thing right now. There are other people who have gone through it and come through the other side. And so no matter what you think, no matter how bad you think it is, no matter how bad it seems, no matter how hopeless it might seem, there's always a way out. And if you hang in there and ask for help and reach out for help, you're eventually going to be hooked up with that person who knows exactly what you're going through, and when you share with them at an honest level, and they share back with you, you understand. You go, wow, I'm not alone. And that's a really important thing for us to realize, is that we're not alone. We isolate sometimes when we're in a bad place. We tend to isolate, which is the worst thing you can do, right? You need to reach out and speak to people and not isolate. For me, when I isolate, I go back in that place where I think and think and think, and my thinking takes me to negative places. I need to get out of that danger zone between my ears, and talk and share, and realize that those thoughts that I have are just thoughts. They're not my reality. And those are just some of the for instances. Yeah, because I know that there many people suffer from depression, and people are afraid to speak out about it because they're afraid of looking weak. And Michael Landsberg and I did a show this week, earlier this week, along with Kim Christink from Bay Ridge Counseling Centers, and we addressed the question, you know, how do I know I'm okay, right? And we talked about also how it's really important for us to seek help, to ask for help, and to know that, you know, Michael has hashtag sick not weak. This is a disease. It's no different than cancer. We just look at it differently. And when you start to reach out, realize I'm not weak because I ask for help. To the contrary, that's an absolute strength, right? When you can ask for help and be honest about who you are. The fear that I had, you know, was that I would be rejected. You wouldn't like who I was, who I am. You know, if I told you who I really was, you wouldn't like me. You would reject me. And then my fear of abandonment would kick in, and I would, you know, be alone and I would die. I mean, that's kind of the thinking that I had, right? In fact, when I, you know, as a result of speaking out and, you know, surrounding myself with like-minded people who've gone through the same kind of thing, and speaking and sharing and you know, looking at myself in an objective fashion, doing an inventory of myself, cleaning up the wreckage of my past and moving on and becoming, and then helping others, allows me to be the person that the God of my understanding wanted me to be all along, and now I get a chance to be there and be that person, and that's strength, right? That's and that when you get to that point, you see your life going exponentially, right? And change happens in such a, you know, such an incredible way that, but you got to take those steps to get there, right? It just doesn't happen. Wait, you got to take those steps to get there, and when you do that, you know, it's a great journey. It really becomes a great journey, and you can get through anything. You can get through the death of a son. You can get through anything in your life, right?
It sounds like Joe, you can get through anything, especially from your story. And it just, I feel like the opportunity for us to hear from you, especially myself, is amazing. Somebody yourself I've looked up to, watched on TV all those years. I have to sign off now, but I just want to say thank you, Joe. I'm gonna toss it over to my great co-host Smash, but thank you so much for sharing your story, and I think it's gonna make an impact. It made an impact on me. It's gonna make an impact on a lot of other people. So thank you.
Thanks, Russ. Drive safe.
Thank you.
I can actually see from the questions and the comments on social media, Joe, that you know, you're really having an impact on a lot of people. I'd like to note that it is Canadian Mental Health Week, and you know, so it's very appropriate that you're on and you're sharing the story with us today. We have a question right there on the bottom from Jamie Rebner. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
You are not alone. You're not alone, and this too shall pass. As bleak as it may seem at the time, you know, you hang in there for a little while longer. You know, stay a little longer, try a little harder. You're going to get to a good place. Trust the process. It will, you know, it will get you to a better place. And yeah, so that's what it would be the best thing, most, you know, the most probably important, impactful advice that I've had, as long as I listen to it and believe that it's, because I look at people who've gone through what I've gone through, other alcoholics and addicts who you know, when I came into recovery and I saw what you know, where they were now at, and I realized that they were just like me, but now they're in a good place. And so I realized that you know, there are many recovery programs out there that you can hook up with that suit you, you know, depending on your addiction, your drug of choice, alcohol, in my case. But you know, and there are places for you to go, and places where you can get help, and you know, go there. Don't be afraid to reach out.
Wow. Joyce, you know, has a question. She wants to know, was there a family history of your illness or any illness in general?
Drinking was commonplace in my family. Let's put it that way. And you know, I guess I come from a long line of people who drank. Not everybody drank like I did, but you know, there was you know, people drank, and that tends to be but it's a funny thing. I've got friends who are alcoholics who parents never touched it. I've got friends who are alcoholic and everybody in their family was an alcoholic. I got friends who don't drink and everybody in their family is alcoholic. It's kind of like there is a high percentage of correlation between generation. It can be a generational thing, but it can also happen. It can skip generations. It can also be skip. And it's just there's kind of no way of knowing how it's whether it's gonna happen to you or not until it happens. And then but if you got a problem, I look at it this way: if you're wondering if you got a problem with drugs or alcohol, chances are you got a problem with drugs or alcohol. Because people who don't have a problem, who can take it or leave it, and I mean really just take it or leave it, they don't ask, they don't worry. It's not gonna happen. They never, they're not concerned about it at all. It's like, that's
it. In your mind, how important is it that we've begun to normalize these kind of conversations, whether it be mental health or addiction? This is something that we're having, in schools, in society. You mentioned the show you were on with Michael Lansbury this week. How important is that?
Well, it's hugely important, and Michael founded the hashtag Sick Not Weak, and that's been really instrumental in getting conversation out there. And the more the better. I mean, this idea that this is really old thinking and really wrong thinking, to think that somehow, some way, particularly men, should have to, do this on their own and not ask for help and, not admit to having a problem and all this other nonsense. It's like, if I had heart disease, I would go to the doctor and the doctor would prescribe something for me, and I'd start changing my diet and whatever, and I'd get well. I have no problem letting people know about that, and but for some reason there's this shame, stigma around alcohol and drugs, and that people who have problems with that, and there really shouldn't be, and if you open up about it and share about it, and they're willing to face it, and you can move on and get well, because there is nothing wrong with it. It's just like anything else. It's just who we are, and it's okay to be who we are. And the more I'm able to be who I am, the better I feel about myself. And the fact that I'm an alcoholic doesn't bother me at all. I mean, it becomes one of my greatest strengths. My ability to help others allows me to be in a place where it's far greater place than I ever was before. I work at a treatment center, Addiction Rehab Toronto, and I go in once a week and I talk to the folks in there and share my experience and help them to understand the recovery process. And it's I'm so grateful I'm able to do that. It's helps me to feel really, really good.
That's amazing, and I'm sure they're grateful as well. Joe, we only have a few minutes left with you, so I want to bring this conversation back to the career. You spent 30 plus years at CTV. Now you're doing your own thing. You're at Joe Tilley Sports on Facebook. Tell me about the next chapter in your sports career, your journalism career.
All right, so I started doing the show with another guy a little while ago, and then back in December, I decided I'm going to start my own show, Joe Tilley Sports, and bring in athletes in and looking at their stories, and in a lot of cases they got some really incredible stories too. We had Ron Elson, who talked about his addiction issues, or sorry, not his addiction issues, but here we have Victor Lee talking about esports, but we have I've had Rick Five, Lyndon Clark, and Donovan Bailey, and like a lot of former great Toronto-based athletes and Canadian athletes, and there's Don, and it was awesome, like to be able to do the show and to go deeper than I ever was allowed to go through, and with back in my back in the day when I was at CFTO and then CTV Toronto. And so I offer a lot of local stuff, which you can't get on local television in Canada anymore for whatever reason. And so I go big. I actually had all the former anchors from CTV, CFTO, CTV on a couple of weeks ago. Lance Brown and Claude Fake and Sunil Joshi, and there was a blast to be with the old guys. Today's show I had 3 great Canadian boxing champions: Ray Olawale, Mark Simmons, and Troy Ross. And we had a really great boxing conversation about the heavyweight division in Canadian boxing and their careers and their acting careers, and so I get to delve a little deeper into the lives of these folks. And I've had Scotty Bowman on the show, and I've had, oh my God, amazing people. Eurico Rosa da Silva, the jockey, had an incredible story in his life of an addiction, and wow, it's so we go deep. Gary Younger. I mean, I lots of guys, and lots of different people, and Cheryl Pounder and Sammy Joe Small. We talked about what it was like to, be a girl coming up in the hockey, male-dominated hockey world, and how they helped to change the landscape and what they had to go through to get there. And yeah, so it's a lot deeper than just hey, welcome, you had a great career, bada bing, bada boom. And so I get to go deeper. So it's something I've always wanted to do, and now I finally have the opportunity, and it's great. Joe Tilley Sports.
Joe Tilley Sports on Facebook, and I've seen a few of the episodes. I actually watched the boxing one today, and it's great. I completely vouch for it, and I can't wait to see more. So Joe, I guess I have one last question for you. I saw this a few times on social media as well. If you can pinpoint one, or you can give me 2 moments from your career that stand out, that were just absolute highlights, that you're, wow, I'm awed to be with this individual or to cover this event, what would it have been?
Well, the first one would be, I was at the '78 Commonwealth Games in Edmonton. My club was kind of like a host. I lost in the semifinals. In the national, so I didn't get to go, but that was great just being there, and I was at every one of the fights, and it was a fantastic tournament. Then in 1984, I was working in Lethbridge. The Stanley Cup finals were on. I went back home to Edmonton for the weekend. It was game 5 of the Stanley Cup final, Islanders and Oilers. I called Bill Tuelli, who was the media relations guy for the Oilers, and I said, yeah, I'm at CFC in Lethbridge. I'm in town for the weekend. Can I get a pass to come and see the game? So he said, yeah, no problem, Joe. Come on down. And so I went down to the old Northland Coliseum and got my press pass. And I looked, it was all access. I was in the press box for the game, and at the end of the game when Mark Messier got down on his knees and he looked up the crowd and saw his family, and the Oilers celebrated that first Stanley Cup win. And then afterwards, I got into the dressing room and drank champagne out of the Stanley Cup and the whole thing, and it was just an amazing. The Oilers were my team, of course. So that was, I had 2 teams. When I was a kid, I liked the Leafs, and I liked the Oilers because they came in existence. But then when they traded Gretzky, I became all in for the Leafs. But anyway, that was really cool. I was there when Lennox Lewis fought Tony Tucker. It was the first defense of the title. He claimed when Riddick Bowe threw the belt into the garbage can. I was there for that. I was there when Donnie Lalonde fought Sugar Ray Leonard in Vegas. That was an exciting time, and that was a blast. When Donnie knocked him down, I thought, "Oh wow, here we go, a Canadian, beautiful!" And of course, Ray came back and won the fight. But we did have that moment, and Ray was like a hero of mine too. So I couldn't lose. Donnie wins, great. A Canadian wins. Ray wins, no. He's my idol. So yeah. So those are a couple of the big events that stand out for me. Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome. And as a diehard Montreal Canadiens fan, I have to note that you've never celebrated a Leaf Stanley Cup as the sports anchor of Toronto.
Not as a sports anchor in Toronto, but I do remember them winning a Stanley Cup. I go back that far. So But yeah, so it could happen this year. The first step might be getting past those pesky Habs, but we'll see. Maybe it'll be Winnipeg they play in the first round, the way the Jets have sunk lately.
Just Cole Caulfield, that guy is turning on the Jets. I mean,
right? They can rest him till overtime. Just rest him the whole game,
and just let him score the game-winning goal. Yeah,
that's
fine by me.
Yeah. Yeah, the Habs are. Yeah, they're looking a lot better these days, and Jake Allen has had a big game, and it's good that he's around because Terry's had his struggles, but the Habs are. It's going to be a real fun series if they do meet up. Yeah.
Anytime the Habs play the Leafs, I absolutely love it. So if it can be a 7-game series, all the better.
I'm hoping they'll at least take him out in 5 or 6, but yeah, okay. If they need 7 to do it, so be it.
You know what? I'll let you leave with that one, but it might not happen, but I'll let you leave with that one. Joe, once again, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Honestly, your story is incredible. There are a few words that I can say, and it's Mental Health Week in Canada, so I'm so happy you were on this week to share it with us. I know you inspired many, and so many will go back in the stream and watch it time and time again. Absolute honor having you on the show.
My pleasure, Daniel, and good luck with Maccabee, and yeah, it's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you so much for joining us now on Frontline Access. I'd like to say that registration for the 22 Maccabee Games taking place next summer is open. So visit MaccabeeCanada.com. Please sign up. Come join us in Israel next summer for the time of your life. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks with fantastic guests from the Sylvan Adams Sports Institute in Israel.